Erik Oleson, I'm here for Man in the High Castle.
Erik, how many years did it take to get this television show made, and how did it finally happen?
Well, I was hired to join the show for season 2. I know from the novel, which was written decades ago, the producers of the original producers of the series struggled for many years to bring it to the screen. It was a long development process, over a decade. So I was fortunate enough to be brought on in season 2.
Okay. Had you already watched the show?
Oh yes, I'd watched all of season 1, and I came on board and ended up being the head writer of season 2.
So do you remember when you sat down to write, let's say, I don't know if you did a spec script for them or how the process was, but what was the first presentation of your work you presented to these people?
Well, I had written on 15 other television series prior to Man in the High Castle, so my work was kind of known. I'm also an executive producer, so they knew I could handle a lot of the other aspects that go along with writing a big television show like this. But the thing that I'd written that probably put me most in contention, I'd written a pilot about Nazi-occupied Paris, which was a historically based pilot. And so I think a lot of the folks read that and said, oh, he knows how to do a Nazi show.
Okay. What are your first steps for writing a screenplay? Do you have a sort of a tried and true set of rules that you use, or no? Everything's different. Every project's different.
Well, my process evolves every time I do another job. I realize how much I didn't know in my prior job. So I'm somebody who reads pretty much every trick, every screenwriting book, every script that I can get my hands on, and I'm constantly trying to evolve as a craftsman. I also am fortunate enough in this job to surround myself with really talented people, and you learn a lot from other writers. Like, there were writers on Man in the High Castle who won Emmys, or Martin Scorsese's best friend is another one. You want to really kind of learn from the people around you, and that just makes you better. So I can't say that I have any set process, although right now, as I'm developing something, I have to say I'm a big fan of the John Truby stuff. I think he kind of hits a sweet spot for me. But I've taken them all. I've taken McKee. I've taken everyone. I'm one of these guys who likes to learn new stuff about the craft, and I figure if I can learn something from any book, if I get one thing out of it, it makes me a better writer. That's kind of I'm all for it. So,
have you ever written a screenplay that has no structure?
I am more of a planner than a pantser. Obviously, like Stephen King will say, swears by the seat of your pants approach. But I'm much more of an outliner, an engineer when it comes to that. And then you throw that out, and then you let the character speak to you, and you get in the moment, and things change. But I also I'm a big fan of structure, I have to say. So no, I haven't just sat down and tried to write something, a final product from page one. I kind of construct it over time. I'm a grinder, I guess you could say.
When you begin to write, are you envisioning the people watching the final product, or that doesn't even enter into your mind? You're so involved in the beginning and what's in your own head?
I do. You want to keep the audience in mind somewhat, but you also don't want to pander. Like, if you're in the moment, much as an actor is in the moment, you're trying to find the humanity and the truth behind what you're writing about in any kind of, whether you're doing a superhero show, whether you're doing a big, deep socio-political show like Man in the High Castle. You want to actually find yourself lost in the moment and how the characters are speaking to each other as real people, and that's the joy of discovery that happens when you have enough, for me at least, when you have enough of the structure figured out, that you have the correct characters in the scene, then you're in the moment, and they start to talk to you when it works.
Well, speaking of talking, and this will be my last question, but with dialogue, how much are you refining the dialogue and making sure that you're researching it for that specific time period and trying it out on other people?
Constantly. I mean, there's a constant polish process that goes on for dialogue. And also, we had researchers who were looking to make sure that we didn't use words that didn't exist today. And you know, sometimes they would catch us making an anachronistic, modern kind of like, oh yeah, that doesn't work. We have to change the line. Because of course we all are creatures of pop culture as well. So in Man in the High Castle, which takes place in the early 60s, I had to, avoid references to some of my favorite superheroes.
Okay. Any other terminology, or definitely not the word bro? I mean, that's become part of the culture now. But I mean, were certain things definitely in the 60s we weren't even realizing that wasn't part of the vernacular?
Right. Well, I mean, in the case of Man in the High Castle, it's an alternative world also, where history has turned out differently from the tale of World War II. So a lot of the language that we would use in a first draft kind of would be slightly different, like given the way the world turned out and cultural experience. And in Man in the High Castle, white people are not, the overclass in the Pacific states. They're kind of treated as a oppressed minority, and so there's all sorts of textures that seed into the language when you have that kind of a storyline. So it's an alt history storyline, and language was very important to us, and we had a lot of very smart people making sure that we were polishing it up right to the moment that the cameras rolled.
Excellent. Thank you, Erik.
Thank you so much.